Hello, everybody. Welcome back to NDIS. I'm your host, David Trinket, alongside Lincoln Retzloff and Ian Iverson, as usual. And today we're going to have a very special guest, ESPN announcer Clay Matvick. He'll be joining us shortly. But before then, we will get through our typical early podcast traditions, which would start with weekend recaps. But in this case, what have you been up to lately? Ian, would you like to go first? Got some new scenery behind you. Did you get upgraded in the office?
No, um, I move around throughout the week. We have a new guy here that's been here a couple months, and so I've been out here trying to help him get more accustomed to the vibes and the culture, if you will. So, um, just sitting here tonight, doing some CFP studying, still rolling along. Weekend, um, sorry to all you guys, I chose UFC over the hockey game, but shout out to Jackson Blake. It's always great to see another Sioux alumni hoist the cup. So just fantastic. That was very fun to kind of hear about that and see it happen. Watch UFC at the White House. America rules. That was one of the coolest sporting events I've ever watched. Um, it was just pretty sweet all around. All the fights were great. Stayed up way too late. Was in shambles at work yesterday, but took a nap after work yesterday, and so we're back to regular programming.
Nice. Lincoln, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of just this weekend went home, saw some family, whatnot, stuff like that, and then yeah, I kind of did the same thing as Ian. I watched pretty much all the fights, not all the fights. I want to say up until there was about 10 minutes left in the hockey game. Then I watched Blake raise the cup, which is pretty cool. So yeah, not a whole lot, but just hanging out, hearing forks and whatnot. So yeah, it's been fun.
Nice. Yeah, for me, just been working and trying to enjoy the weekends as they come if I'm not busy and I don't have to leave, just enjoying them here, doing whatever with some friends. And then yeah, watching the playoffs has been fun, both NBA and NHL. And yeah, it's pretty much it. It's gonna be a busy July. Not much on the hockey front as we move forward here to the Stanley Cup playoffs overlook. Yeah, so as of Sunday night, we're recording this on June 16th on a Tuesday evening. 2 nights ago, the Stanley Cup playoffs wrapped up. It was Sunday night, right? Yeah, it was Sunday night. And Jackson Blake. Well, we knew, I don't know if last time we had the pod, if we knew we are gonna for sure gonna have a UND player race to the cup, but it was between Cole Smith for Vegas and Jackson Blake for Carolina. And it would have been cool to see Cole Smith win it too, but Jackson Blake raises the cup at 22 years old, which is awesome for him. His dad never got to win one, so obviously a really pretty cool and surreal moment for him to be able to do that. And he ended up he finished for the team lead in points for Carolina in the playoffs. Didn't get the Conn Smythe Trophy like Jonathan Toews did in 2010, but it went to a very well-deserved Jordan Staal, who had just an unbelievable face-off rating and went, what do you have, 5 goals in the first 5 games of the finals. So uh he played a huge part for Carolina in that series, just like Blake did. That whole second line, I can't remember if it's second or third line, but Stan Coven, Taylor Hall, and Jackson Blake just carried Carolina through those playoffs. So it was really good to see his presence out there and watch him make such a big impact on the team. And then obviously I don't know if it's obvious, but his contract starts up. His new contract starts up next year, so that'll be a big thing for him. Really cool to see. But anyone got anything to add on the playoffs before we kind of head into the Clay Matvick interview? Anything? Cool. Well, that being said, we'll head right into that interview. So here's ND Ice with Clay Matvick. All right. It is at this point where I'd like to welcome on the guy behind the voice behind the infamous or the famous Holy Cross, Minnesota regional moment and many other moments just in lots of different sports, but longtime ESPN broadcaster Clay Matvick. Clay, how you doing? See you're in the car there. Thanks for joining us.
I'm excellent. Yeah, hey, sorry that I'm peregrinating through Minnesota here right now. We're getting back from a fishing trip and just dropped off my brother and had a good day on the lake, and it's good to be with you.
Great.
So I apologize that I'm not stationary right now,
Oh,
but
no
if
worries.
you'll put up with this, we'll have a nice conversation.
Oh yeah, we appreciate the time. So just thank you for
You bet.
doing this for us. We appreciate it. But yeah,
Thanks
Clay,
for
why
having
don't
me.
yeah, thank you so much. I mean, we've all done some research, but for those who are listening, why don't you go into a little bit of your bio here, like where are you from originally, and then kind of where you living now?
Well, I'm from Minnesota originally, from central Minnesota, not far from St. Cloud. That's where I was born and grew up. A little bit north of Foley for about 7, 8 years. That's where
Sweet.
the Matvicks are originally from. We had a family farm there until my dad got out of the farming business and got into radio, which is a natural progression. You get out of farming and go into radio. And then I spent 4 or 5 years out in Morris, Minnesota. That's where
Okay.
my dad had his first radio job. And then from there, we moved to Princeton, Minnesota, and that's where I spent a lot of my growing up years and graduated high school from Princeton. And my dad was working in radio there as well. And that's where I kind of got into radio. Uh, Started working at the radio station that my dad worked at when I was 16. Did a little sports casting then, but mostly playing records.
Oh,
And I
really?
really enjoyed that.
Disc
Yeah,
jockey a little
I was
bit.
a country music DJ. And my first professional interview was Alan Jackson when I was
Wow.
16 years old. And
Wow.
he had maybe one record on the radio at that point, and now he's a country music Hall of Famer. So that's
That's
uh
massive.
that's kind of cool. That's kind of a thing to look back on from almost 40 years ago and say, yeah, I remember Alan Jackson when nobody knew who Alan Jackson was. But then went to the Army for a bit, and when I came back, went to St. Cloud State because it was in my backyard.
Hmm.
So I probably go to St. Cloud State no matter what, but it just happened to have one of the best
Yep,
broadcasting schools for radio and TV around these parts. And so I
for
was able
sure.
to live it while I got going at school, and then moved to St. Cloud full time for my sophomore year and started working at WJON. And when I was working at WJON, I had the St. Cloud State football and basketball play-by-play job.
Okay.
And so I was working professionally, while I was still going to St. Cloud State. And that was a real great experience. And the people at the station were terrific so much. But when I was at St. Cloud State, I kind of realized that I liked the TV side of it. And the TV program there was outstanding. And they
Yep.
were doing St. Cloud State hockey games on TV that, they're still doing there. Their UTVS productions are really good. And
Yeah.
I cut my teeth doing hockey TV that way. That was the first hockey television I'd ever done. Um, and so, that's kind of how that started. After I was done at St. Cloud State, I got my first job in television in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And unfortunately for me, I got away from the play-by-play thing for a while. And at the time, it was fine, and I was fine with it. Um, I'm sorry, I'm pulling a trailer. That's why the thing keeps
Oh, no worries.
notifying me that I'm towing. But the anchoring thing on the weekends, I was a sports anchor in Sioux Falls and then in Omaha for a few years, and I really enjoyed that. But I wanted to get back into live events, and that was going to be a while because the TV thing kept kind of drawing me into new opportunities and better directions and more money and just better opportunity. So I I always knew that someday I would attempt to get back into live events and play by play. Fortunately, that happened down the road. So that's probably more than you
Hmm.
needed to know about my
Oh
background, but
no.
that's kind of the Cliff's Notes.
No, you burned through a lot of the questions we were already going to ask anyway. Yeah, so uh funny, I grew up in St. Cloud, so I know the area well. I know Princeton, I know Foley. I went to Foley a lot for when I was a kid too. So small world little thing there, but um
Yeah.
yeah, so going a little bit back to St. Cloud State, you mentioned I think I mean us at UND, especially the ones into hockey, know that they take a lot of pride in their broadcasting program. They got a lot of names that come out of there. Taylor Budge is one that we've had around the last 10 or so years uh, with Midco Sports. She's done a great job. But what was kind of like for those of us who are curious, who maybe are a little bit more younger, and the way that St. Cloud State has changed over the last 30 or so years, what was it like going to school there? What was the atmosphere like? What were the vibes like on campus? Or like, what was it just how has it changed to how it is now? I know it was just a lot different back in the 90s.
Well, I can only go from what I've been told about how it's changed. I haven't been on campus much in the last 25 years, to be honest. Um, but when I was going to school there, it had a really good vibe, and I think there were a lot of kids from the Twin Cities that were going to St. Cloud State because it was still far enough away from home that you had that
Hmm.
college experience, yet it was close enough to where you could get home on the weekends. I don't know that it's lost that vibe. I think some things on campus have changed, certainly when it comes to sports. Dropping the football program was a
Yeah.
disappointment. I believe they dropped wrestling. I don't know if that's come back or not. I think they have lost that too. I'm sure a different feel. With that said, St. Cloud State hockey is still what beats the drum there. And
Hmm.
I know that the television department and the radio station and the broadcasting curriculum there is fantastic. It still is. They're still pumping out a lot of great people.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted to go there because, for one, it was close to home.
Right.
Also, they accepted me. My grades were nothing to write home about. I wasn't just getting in anywhere. And it was affordable. So there were a lot of reasons St. Cloud State was a perfect fit for me in the late '80s, early '90s when I was trying to figure out where I was going. Um, Dick Bramer went to St. Cloud State, and at that time, Dick Bramer was the voice of the Twins. Did a lot of Gopher basketball. I
Hmm.
certainly was aware of who Dick was, and I always admired his work and um, kind of considered myself a student of his in a way. I fancied myself as a Dick Bramer type, no nonsense, call the game, you know, and I just liked his style. So if Dick went there, that it was good enough for him. It was good enough for me. There were also a couple of other people that were lesser known, um, including a guy from Princeton who did some journalism and worked for Minnesota Public Radio back in the '70s, who came from my hometown, and he went to St. Cloud State. So there were some natural ties and some people that I aspired to be like that, had gone to St. Cloud
Hmm.
State. Um, so I really am happy with my choice there.
Yeah.
Uh, the football team was really good at the time. Back in the late '80s,
They play
87,
UND.
88, 89. Yeah, they were in the North Central Conference with North Dakota and North Dakota State, and North Dakota State was a fantastic Division II power at the time. And there were a couple of years in the late '80s that St. Cloud State had beaten them, and so they had a pretty good reputation in sports. And so I was fired up about that too. So St. Cloud State just was a very good fit.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a tremendous program there still. And um yeah, let's get into let's see where we want to go here now. Yeah, so like You talked about how you got into. Oh yeah, actually, I was gonna fit this one in quick. So you mentioned that you did. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did some hockey while you were at St. Cloud State. Some hockey games.
I did a year of their UTVS St. Cloud State Husky hockey package.
Okay.
I also hosted their um, Husky magazine show.
No, very cool.
And so that's how I got some anchoring experience that kind of set me up well for my time in television. But yeah, I hadn't done a lot of hockey play-by-play. I did some for WJON, some high school hockey when I was working there. Some radio stuff at Sartell and for Sauk Rapids and St. Cloud Tech and Cathedral, and we do a high school hockey game of the week kind of thing. And
Very cool.
man,
Yeah.
I would listen to some of those tapes and they were very raw. I had done some in Princeton high school hockey as well, and that was even worse. I finally started to figure out hockey by the time I was at St. Cloud State, and doing it on TV actually made me better because the radio call is much more, you have to be much more descriptive and it's much more intensive.
Yeah. There's
Uh,
no visual there.
names and numbers, and no visual there. So TV, I think, actually made me better at calling hockey by doing more TV and letting it breathe a little bit. And it allowed me to kind of catch up. And then I went back a couple of times and did some radio calls, and it was more fulfilling. I felt like I did the audience, well, actually the listeners, I did a better job. So St. Cloud State made me a better hockey announcer, but I hadn't done a lot of hockey before UTVS.
Do you remember kind of like I just am asking this because I'm sure the UND fans who are listening would like to know what was like the atmosphere like when UND would come to town at St. Cloud State from maybe that year that you did announce, if you remember.
Oh, it was terrific. Yeah, it was fantastic. Um, St. Cloud State games, the program was still relatively new. It
Yeah,
was
80, 87, I
maybe
want to
not.
say they jumped.
Yeah, it wasn't even a decade old as a Division One program. So, those WCHA games on Fridays and Saturdays were fantastic. And when Minnesota came to town, you couldn't get a ticket. When Wisconsin came to town, couldn't get a ticket. North Dakota came to town, couldn't get a ticket. Duluth came to town, couldn't get a ticket. You might be able to
Wow.
sneak in there for Michigan Tech, Northern Michigan, but even those were hard to get. And the National Hockey Center, not a great building in my opinion. It is now. It's much better now. They've put some work into it, but at the time it wasn't a great building in my estimation, but it had a great vibe when it was full.
Oh yeah.
And they loved to climb on the Gophers and they loved to climb on the Badgers and the Sioux. It was a good time to be a hockey fan in Minnesota when the old WCHA was cranking in the early 90s. It was
Oh yeah.
delirious.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I mean it was pretty lively even I mean yeah, just the WCHA days were just are second to none I think and I think all of us kind of believe that for sure. Um so you went into a little bit about your early career in broadcasting. How did you get your start at ESPN?
Um, well, I was after I did my time at Sioux Falls and Omaha, I went to CNN Sports Illustrated. And again, I was still, primarily an anchor there. I did a little bit of reporting in the field, but not much. I was behind the desk anchor for CNN SI. You guys are too young to remember this, but that was a 24-hour sports network, which was competing with ESPN and ESPN News primarily. It was a 24-hour news product where every half hour and sometimes every hour the show would repeat, and we just keep you updated on sports of the day. Um, And that ran for about 7 years, 8 years. But I was one of their early domestic anchors because we had a world international sports department as well that covered rugby and soccer and everything overseas. It was a really interesting newsroom. Um, Got to meet a lot of great people. I mean, CNN, 25, well, this would have been 1999, so 25, 26, 27 years ago, uh, was quite the place. And it's a little different now, but, CNN wasn't that far removed from the Gulf War and their great coverage of that war. That's what made them famous, in my opinion. And and so I'm anchoring with like Fred Hickman and Vince Cellini and Nick Charles, Jim Huber, and some of those great names from those old CNN sports days. And I was 25, 26 years old at the time, so I was just eating it up with a spoon and just loving life. It was a fantastic place to live, Atlanta, Georgia, when you're young, and it's just a great place to be. Um, Anchoring sports, and I did that for 2 years, but then I had an opportunity to come home and work for the Minnesota Twins. Not directly. I worked for Fox Sports North, but I would be covering the Twins and the Wild, which were brand new at the time, and the Gopher hockey team. And I was going to be primarily a pregame host and postgame host and do intermission interviews and do some field reporting and what have you. And so that opportunity to come back to Minnesota and do that was just too good to pass up. So I came back to Minnesota and I did that for about 4 years, but I still wasn't doing a lot of play by play. I'd fill in for Dick Bramer, who, like I said before, went to St. Cloud State and was somebody that I kind of emulated. And I would fill in on like 25 Twins games over the course of a year or two. And I would do some backup play by play for the Wild and a little bit of play by play for the Gophers, but just not enough. I wanted to do that full time. And it was apparent that I was not going to get that opportunity at Fox Sports North. Dick Bramer was, still in the middle of his career. He wasn't going anywhere. Uh, Frank Mazzocca was still doing the Gophers. He
Right.
wasn't going
Frank.
anywhere. Yeah, the Wild had, a couple of different guys at that time that they were really happy with. And so I just knew that the opportunities weren't going to come.
Right.
And so I kind of outgrew Fox Sports North. I think they outgrew me or got tired of me. And we just kind of did this. And so it was good. It was good. It was actually meant to be. And I ended up at ESPN. How exactly? Let's see. Bob Kurtz, who was the radio voice of the Wild, friend of mine, had done some freelance work with ESPN, and one of his old producers, John Vassallo, was currently working at ESPN and called Bob and asked him if he was going to be available to do the NCAA hockey regionals. But he wasn't available because of his Wild responsibilities or something else. He wasn't able to do it. And he suggested me. And so that's how John Vassallo got my name. I gave him my tape. One thing led to another, and that's how I ended up doing the 2006 NCAA regionals. that are that's still, one of the things I guess I'm remembered most for, at least around here. And that's how I got to ESPN. And then one thing led to another. And then that fall, I was doing a football package. And then that winter, I did some basketball. And then it turned into a full-time job. And this coming fall will be my 21st football season.
Wow. That's huge. Did and correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I remember seeing you do like rinkside announcing at the '05 Frozen Four. Am I mistaken?
Nope. ESPN had me doing ringside at the Frozen Four for 4 or 5 years
Prior to
on
that?
top of
Okay.
hosting the Hobie Baker Award.
Very cool.
Now the '05 Frozen Four, that wouldn't have been me. Might have been somebody
Okay.
else. I did it in '07, '08, '09, 10, 11 maybe. And then after that, I think I was out. I didn't do they wanted Quint Kesnick doing it, and he does a great job. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Quinn's still doing it, I think, or he was up until
yep, yeah,
I think Colby does the rinkside now. I think I want to say Quinn the last time I remember him doing it for sure was like 2019, 2018, something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They really like Colby Cohen.
Yeah.
He does a good job.
And he lived the moment. He's one of the perfect guys that I'm sure they were looking for that. Yeah, Lincoln, you can ask your question
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, hey Clay, this is Lincoln. I'm just kind of curious, over the years, how would you
Hey,
say
man.
your 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 evolution for, I don't know, prepping before games has kind of gone? Because I know every play-by-play or announcer, whatever, has their own way of going about things. So how would you kind of say your routine for preparing for a hockey game, baseball, whatever you're covering, football goes?
Well, they're all different. And I'll tell you what, it took me a while to develop the style that works for me for each sport. And I would say just in the last 5 or 6 years of my career, have I found a comfort zone for all of the sports that I cover. I would even say up until 10 years ago, I was still searching for the right approach to football, the right approach in how I was doing my hockey prep, what's important, what's not, what to sweat about, what to leave on the cutting room floor, what to drill down into, um, where to work the best, work smarter, not harder, so to speak. It's a cliche, but it's really true. And especially when it comes to hockey, I really feel like in the last 6, 7 years, I've found a sweet spot in how I do it. I'm just not doing a lot of hockey anymore. Just the way it is. With that said, I like how I do it now. I concentrate a lot more on names and numbers than I did in the beginning. I think the first 10 years I was at ESPN, I concentrated more on stories and less on just the basics. And what I would find is that I was rich in knowledge on every single player, but I was constantly doing the head looking down to make sure I knew exactly who had the puck. And that's a death sentence. I don't think I was bad. It's just I could have been better. And so what I did is I just decided, you know what, names and numbers first. Everything else comes secondary. And I still found that I I didn't slough off on the information and the stories and where they're from and how they got to be at Denver or who coached them when they were in the USHL or this, that, and the other thing. But I wanted to be on top of the play more, and I found that I was. It made me a better announcer. I felt like I was better in the big moments because I did the basics first, and then the prep got easier for me because I found that when I was studying up, I was retaining a lot of the information anyway, and I didn't need even if I wrote it down somewhere, I wasn't looking at it or reading it verbatim off my sheet. I had it committed to memory somewhere, so that's how I did it. In the last, I would say, 10 or so years, I just started doing it that way. And I think it made me better. My football prep has also been streamlined a little bit. I do my boards an entirely different way than most people do football boards. I look at my stuff on my sheet from left to right, no matter if the offense is moving from left to right. That's how it is on my card. I have the offensive line here, the quarterback right behind him, and the running backs right behind the quarterback. I have the receivers down below, tight ends up top in the left-hand corner, and then I have notes written up on top, up to the right. And then I have defense on a sheet that is exactly to the opposite of it. And again, it's moving front to back. So it would be from,
Okay. Yep.
the defensive line, excuse me, then the linebackers, and then the secondary. And it's just the way I visualize it in my head. So that's
Mhm.
how I put it on my cards. you see a lot of the spotting boards that the football announcers use, and it's completely different. But I've done it that way for 25 years, and old dogs and new tricks. So it's what's working for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, whatever works, everyone's got their own way of doing it. What let's just go back to it because I know you spoke to it a little bit about it before, how you said it seems to be the one that everyone remembers the most. Uh and people, whenever I mention you in a conversation, and yeah, the way I always give them, they always like know who you are, as I tell them the Holy Cross one. But what do you, going back to that day or that weekend in March of '06, what do you remember about, if anything, about that hockey game, or like the atmosphere, or what do you remember about leading up to it, or the game, or how it played out?
Well, it was the first weekend I was actually getting paid to work for ESPN, and that's the truth.
Oh,
I had done nothing for ESPN up to that point. Um, and like I said, Bob Kurtz had hooked me up with John Vasallo, who no longer works with our company, unfortunately, but a great guy, and he was a great early contact for me in my time at ESPN. So I was nervous. Here's the network that I've been watching since 1981 when we first got cable, and now all of a sudden I'm working for them, and here's my first opportunity to be on the network and to hopefully impress them, and hopefully it leads to more work, which it ultimately did. Whether I impressed them, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm still working for them, so I guess so. But that was the biggest thing. I was like, God, I hope I don't screw this up. And really, at that time, I hadn't done a ton of hockey. Now I've done hundreds of games, but at that time, I'd probably done dozens of games. I'd done the state high school hockey tournament. Yes, I had done a lot of hockey on radio, high school hockey, and the stuff for St. Cloud State TV, and just enough to, yeah, I think be good enough to be where I was at, but certainly not good enough to feel uber confident that I wasn't going to screw it up somehow. So, that's a long drive up to Grand Forks, when you're nervous like that.
oh
And
yeah.
so I, Jim Paradise was my partner that weekend, a former Colorado College captain,
Hmm.
and he picked me up at my house, and we drove the whole way trying to memorize four teams that we hadn't seen ever. At least that season, I'd seen Minnesota. I take that back, but I hadn't seen any of the other teams we were going to. I hadn't seen North Dakota in person. I'd seen him on TV, but I can't remember that I'd seen him in person that year. Um, so and I for sure knew nothing about Holy Cross. And help me, who was the fourth team?
Michigan.
Michigan, of course. So, I mean, yeah, and Red Berenson. I mean, talking to that guy, I mean, that guy will intimidate
Yeah.
you just when he gets
Oh
off the
yeah.
bus. So
Scary
I
looking
was
guy.
nervous. Yeah, so I was nervous. Um, and Jim and I were just trying to get to know each other a little bit. We'd never worked together. But he said, "Hey, I'm going to be driving up there too. Do you want to ride with me? And we'll talk and get to know each other a little bit, and we can try and figure these teams out on the ride up." And that's what we did. I was sitting there with my charts, and I'd say, let's talk about Holy Cross now. And he'd say, all right, tell me who centers their top line. And I'd try and, think about it. That's kind of what we did, quizzing each other a little bit on.
All right, we're back. So you're just talking about, just a refresher, you're talking about that's just what you did when you guys were practicing the lines and stuff going up to Grand Forks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, then when we got to the arena, I got to the hotel, I met all of the people from ESPN that I had never met before. Casey Carter was our producer that weekend, who I ended up doing football with in the fall. Really good producer. And I just remember it going really about as well as could be expected for those 2 days. And of course, Minnesota getting upset, that was just an amazing development, and nobody saw it coming. And I
Hmm.
think now, the 4 seed in the region upsetting the 1 has become semi-common. I mean, it seems like
Hmm.
once every year, couple of years, you see it. Somebody beats somebody that, yeah, you didn't expect it, but there's so much parity, so it's not unheard of. At the
Right.
time, it was kind of unheard of.
Oh yeah. The first one.
Um, and yeah, and Minnesota was just loaded with draft picks. And obviously, Holy Cross had none, but they had a really old team. They had a lot of guys who were 23, 24 years old. And, they just were gritty, well coached, and the moment wasn't too big for them. And it didn't hurt their cause that all of these Sioux fans were rooting for Holy Cross. And the later the game got and Holy Cross was still in the game, the tighter Minnesota played. And then, of course, it goes to overtime. And, I never dreamed it would get over that fast the way it happened. I thought it would get over quickly, but the other way. I
Hmm.
never, I never thought in a million years it would end in a minute or so into overtime with Holy Cross winning it. And it was just a remarkable scene. And I do remember saying, don't F up the big moment. And how do you screw up the big moment? By talking too much. And all I remember was Al Michaels. And not that I'm comparing myself to Al Michaels or to the Miracle on Ice, but I remember him saying, no words necessary, just pictures. So that's kind of the thought I had. It's like, I'm going to lay out, let this thing breathe, shoot scores, and then just shut up. And that's kind of what
Hmm.
I did. That's what the approach was there. And it just ended up being a really good highlight.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it on the pod because I don't want to embarrass myself, but I remember word for word exactly what you said and everything. I mean, yeah, that one's just such a famous one. I think what made it so big too was, we talked about it for a sec there that it was the first of its kind, and Minnesota, all those draft picks. And I mean, they had just adopted the 16 team format not too many years prior to that, and just
Right.
massive. And like you said, it was in the Ralph with all the fans and everything, just an iconic moment for that program and the NCAA tournament as a whole, and part of your career too, just huge. Um,
Well, yeah, I felt like it kind of it helped me get in the door at ESPN, and I've been there for a couple of decades now, and it's been good for my family. And I guess I can point to that moment as a real turning point in my broadcasting career.
that's huge. Yeah, and it being your first ever honestly day being paid by ESPN, that makes it
Yeah.
just an even cooler part of the story. Um, yeah, and then UND would go on to win that regional a couple days later. Uh, Yeah, that was an awesome story for you. Thank you for doing that one. And then let's uh speed up a little bit to the year after that. I believe the Western Regional you did that year again was in the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado. And the regional
Denver. Yep.
final was University of North Dakota versus Minnesota. So like if that was redone and Minnesota would have won that Holy Cross game, it would have been the same matchup. Obviously, that one went to overtime. Chris Porter scored the wraparound goal. Can you go into a little bit about the same way you did with that one, like just the day
Yeah,
or like the game itself?
I got to be honest with you, I don't remember quite as much from that one, uh, just because it was kind of a redo almost.
Hmm.
Um, and it just there were so many similarities, except for the fact that it was in a different locale. We were in Denver. It was my first time doing play-by-play from that box. I had done wild games from the Pepsi Center as a pregame host and
Hmm.
ringside reporter, but I'd never done a game from there. So it was all right. What are the sight lines like? I remember going up to the booth during the practice day on Thursday, and just for what's this going to look like? Um, and we were rooting for that matchup. I think a lot of people were. You want to see North Dakota, you want to see Minnesota. uh, whoever comes out of there has a chance to win the national championship.
Hmm.
And, again, it's just that rivalry, it never fails to disappoint. And Kevin Porter, of course, just had a tremendous career at North Dakota. And, I guarantee if you ask him right now, what's one of your highlights of your hockey career, that's going to be in the top three.
Oh yeah.
I haven't talked to him. I saw him at a Hobie Baker thing, I want to say, a few years back. But I think if you pinned him down, he would say that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a huge moment. And then again, correct me if I'm wrong. For some reason, I have a vague memory of this isn't UND related, but did you do the regional in 2009 at Mariucci, where Duluth came back and tied it against
Yes,
Princeton?
Duluth and Princeton. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was that was a remarkable game. And everyone who's a fan of sports and the NCAA tournament experience thinks of Princeton basketball. And I couldn't help but think of, the Princeton near upset of Georgetown and all of that stuff when we
Hmm.
were doing that game. And that was just a remarkable, remarkable game. Um, and
Were
why
they
why
down by
is
three
his name?
goals in the third
They
or
were
two
down by
goals?
three in the third. I think it was three in the third. That sounds
Yeah,
about right. You might have better recall on this than I do. Um,
I just
but I
seem to have
do
a weird
remember that.
addiction. You know, not much
Hey,
up here
there are
besides
worse
hockey.
there are worse things to be addicted to. Um, but yeah, the one thing that was disappointing about that was the crowd wasn't nearly as big
Hmm.
because when Minnesota's not in the game, it just a lot of those tickets
Yeah,
don't show up. So I remember it being half full. That was kind of the disappointing part. So there wasn't quite the atmosphere that we had hoped for that game. It was still a good atmosphere, good enough, and the moment was good enough for sure. And of course,
hmm
Guy Godowski was the head coach of Princeton at that time, and then he goes on to do some great things in the Big Ten
hmm
and help at that Penn State program get that on the map. And just a great guy too. I always like Guy.
Yeah, for sure. Let's fast forward a little bit, and I gotta know. Uh, so I'm going with 2016, 18, and 19 here. There's a similarity between those years. In all three of those years, you called the Western Regional. 2016 was in St. Paul, 18 was in Sioux Falls, and 19 was in Fargo. All of which St. Cloud State was the number one seed in that regional, and all of which St. Cloud State had lost. Um, what did when you call St. Cloud State, and this is I just gotta know. When you watch them, that happened to the school that you went to and have a connection with, is it a little sour for you to have to call that moment, or do you just go into it like this isn't, you got to keep it, not associated? Like what was going through your head in those moments, and kind of what's it like announcing a game where your team that when you have association with loses? What is that like?
It's funny. It's funny that you couch it that way. Yeah, did I have a rooting interest in it? Yeah, yes and no. I'll admit, I when I'm calling a game, I just want a good game to call. I
Right.
don't really have a favorite per se. I just want a good matchup. I want a good game to call. I want an exciting finish. I want a clean broadcast. I
Right.
want to make sure that I'm not embarrassed by anything I said when it's all said and done. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for when I walk out of the arena. With that said, yeah, St. Cloud State was underachieving there several years in a row when they were the one seed, and yeah, for some reason I was behind the mic, and I don't believe in curses or anything like that, but or that the announcer jinx or stuff like,
Oh
I just
no.
don't believe in that stuff. But with that said, Lisa Gangle, Matt Gangle, couple of people that I went to St. Cloud State with, and they have gone on to great careers in this industry too. Matt Gangle, in fact, is the director for Fox and their Major League Baseball coverage. He directs the World Series for
Wow.
Fox every year. He and I graduated from St. Cloud State together. His wife, Lisa, she and Matt met at St. Cloud State, and she has gone on to do stuff for ESPN. And they always give me a hard time about being behind the mic when St. Cloud State loses when they're the heavy favorites. So yeah, I mean, I get poked a little bit, but um, it's too bad. There have been some really good opportunities for St. Cloud State to take the next step to win a big regional or to win it all at the Frozen Four, and they just come close, but
Hmm.
some foul balls, some swings and misses, and just close, but not close enough. And it's
Bad
just
luck even.
unfortunate
Yeah.
because yeah, some bad luck. It has nothing to do with the program or the coaching. I think just some bad timing, some bad luck, some poor play at the wrong time, some off nights at the wrong time, and
Hmm.
they'll eventually win one. Yeah, it's happened at Duluth. Duluth has turned into a juggernaut. Scott Sandlin's just been a great fit for that program. I think St. Cloud State is going to get that thing turned around. They've got a new coach now, and
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
I'm hopeful for them. Yeah, for sure. And I didn't mean to take that as a shot at you or anything. I just thought it was an interesting thing
No,
because I always remembered watching those games, or I was at the 19 regional when you announced that one. So yeah, just some little cool stat there, I guess. But yeah, Ian, you had a question. This isn't really this is a little like the timeline's a little off on these questions here. But Ian, what you were gonna ask about the high school hockey tournament?
Well, one thing quick. It's cool that you were down in Atlanta for a few years. That's where I'm from originally, and I know,
oh, is that
about,
right?
yeah, I know about the CNN Center. And sounds like you got there right when the Thrashers first arrived in town, the NHL
I
franchise.
did. Yeah, I started there in '99. When was their first year? '99 or 2000?
I think it was
99.
99.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started in the fall of '99. So they had just started in October, the month before I got there. And because I worked for Turner, we'd occasionally get some free tickets for that. And if we could use them, we did. And it was pretty cool. Same thing with the Braves, because I worked for Turner, we would get free Braves tickets
Yeah.
and got to I remember my boss, Bill Galvin. I'm sitting at my computer working, and Bill Galvin comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I know you're off tomorrow. Would you like to go to the Braves game? I've got some free tickets." And my buddy and I had some plans. We were going to head down to Savannah, go drinking and hang out, do whatever. And he goes, "Are you sure? Because they're in Ted's box, being Ted Turner."
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, okay. Let me reconsider here." So I talked to my buddy. I said, "Instead of going to Savannah, how would you like to go to the Braves game tomorrow night in Ted Turner's box?" And he goes, "Yeah, let's do that instead." So we go to the game, and Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter are in the same box.
Wow.
The president and the first lady are in the same box. So
Oh
Wow.
that
wow.
was really cool. And yeah, so I was down there at a really cool time. The Thrashers had just started up, and working for Turner, got to go to the Hawks games and the Thrashers games and the Braves. It's kind of,
Yeah, that
especially when I
whole
wasn't making a ton of money.
that whole complex is pretty neat. Did they had the big globe in there and everything in the CNN Center?
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's. I'm glad I lived there when I did. I don't think I'd want to live down there now. I think the traffic would have killed me by now. Also, I don't think I'd want to raise a family down there. I'm much happier here.
Hmm.
With that said, I value that experience, the time down there,
Yeah.
what I learned professionally, personally. It was good experience.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
and David and Lincoln, Ted Turner owns, I think, pretty much every pro franchise in Atlanta at this point. Um, so
Yeah, he just
he's a
died
huge
here.
name.
He just died here the last year or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone now, but yeah, he
I
started
always knew the
CNN.
name. Yeah. He
Ted
started
Turner.
it? Oh shoot.
Yeah.
I did. Okay, that's probably where I know it from then. Ian, what was your
He-
question though?
Well,
Sorry,
anyways,
Clay, you can finish what you're gonna say.
I know we're jumping around a bunch, so
That's all
um,
right.
I just had a note here. I live in the Twin Cities now, and so the big thing, here every spring, the start of spring is the high school hockey tournament. And it sounds like you took home some hardware for that in your calling of that back in the day. So just kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, I got a chance to call that thing for like 6 or 7, 8 years in a row. It was a really good experience. And then, they do such a good job on that production. And the, the atmosphere is so great that, you know, as long as you don't screw it up, you're going to be in the running for these Emmy awards and these regional Emmys that are awarded every year. And we won some regional Emmys for the state high school hockey tournament. I did get a play-by-play nod one year, and that was really cool. And I'm really proud of that. I got the little trophy and everything, the Globe trophy with golden statue. It's really neat.
That's
I've got it
cool.
in my office. Yeah. So, Dennis Silva, who is the producer on that for Channel 45, um, in the Twin Cities, he did a really good job rounding up the production crew for that. And we came together, and I always thought we put on really good shows. And but the biggest thing is don't get in the way of the game. Let the game speak for itself. And that's what, that was always my philosophy. And, when Edina's playing Minnetonka in 3 overtimes or whatever it might be, that's good enough. Just call the game at that point.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell stories. You don't have to try and make it something it's not. Just document the action. And that
Hmm.
was kind of my philosophy on that. And we did pretty well when it came to those regional Emmys.
Very cool. Yeah, so what was like if you can pinpoint one, what's and this can be any sport, but if you can memorize if you remember a hockey one too, that works. What's the most exciting game that you'd say you've ever announced?
Exciting game. Oh boy. Um, yeah, that's going to be really hard. I'd have to think about that. It might be the Minnesota Holy Cross game, just because in the historical context and how people have embraced that memory. I think that would have to be right up there. Now, with that said, I was, in the Twins clubhouse for 3 straight division championships in the early 2000s. Now, I didn't call the game, but I was part of the broadcast, and I
Hmm.
was doing the interviews when the champagne was being sprayed all over the clubhouse in Chicago, in Cleveland, and at the Metrodome, and that was cool. Um,
Oh yeah.
I called the Little Brown Jug game back in 2007, Minnesota at the Big House against Michigan for ABC, and I was still getting my feet wet at ESPN, and again I was you know really nervous, and looking back on the game, you know I think I did a good job, but I kind of wish I had a chance to do it now, knowing what I know now. But it was a really cool experience, and especially being a kid who grew up rooting for the Gophers. Um, yeah, I called Joe Mauer's first home run as a Minnesota Twin when I was filling
That's
in for Dick Bramer.
wow.
And of course, he goes on to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Ah,
One of the best pitchers
let's see.
or not pitchers, catchers ever in the MLB.
Yes, yes. Just a lot of cool memories. A lot of cool
That's
memories.
awesome.
There's some great college football games that I've been a part of. Some college baseball. A lot of college hockey, basketball games that were good. Um,
Yeah. I mean, we have so
just
many good ones,
exciting. Yeah,
hard to pick.
those are a handful of things that come to mind, I guess.
And, they were all great nonetheless. Well, how has the game or the job of broadcasting kind of changed since you started to now? Would you say, if you could pinpoint something?
Well, the production values are much better. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's a
I
way bigger
you
business, I
watch
feel like, than it was.
for sure, and the number of cameras. the quality of cameras. When I first started in television, everything was in standard def. Now
Hmm.
we're obviously in high definition and, digital. It's just the quality is so much better. Watch any broadcast from the 1970s, 80s into the 90s, and I dare you to watch 5 minutes of it. And I dare you to tell me the score without hearing it from the announcer, because that was the only way you would know the score back then. Now everything is constantly on the screen. The
Yeah.
count in the at bat, how many outs there are, where the runners are on the bases. The scores of the other games are scrolling across the bottom. You know,
Hmm.
the, uh, the everything is on the screen. The announcers had to 25, 30 years ago have to inform you of just about everything because it wasn't on the screen. The production has changed considerably. Um, the the business is different. What I'm concerned about, how I approach the business hasn't changed that much. Like my prep is fundamentally the same. Like I said, I think I've gotten better at the way I do it, but most of the how I do things is how I was doing it 25 years ago, and at least in how I prepare my boards and my spotting charts and stuff like that, where I get my information. Um, the internet has made it easier, but I think AI is going to change broadcasting a lot in the near future. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
I think the way we prep, it's going to be affected. I also think it could affect jobs, even even maybe my job. If you watch a video game, and it's been like this for years. I mean, my kids' video games, the quarterback goes back
Hmm.
to pass. You hear the announcer in the background, Johnson going back to pass, throws to the corner of the end zone, caught, touchdown. Well,
Hmm.
I mean, that's fundamentally what I would say. It's dressed down. I mean, they don't have
Hmm.
all the specifics in there, and they're probably not storytelling. But it wouldn't surprise me if in the future, to save cost, some of these non-revenue sports, or in some of these games that don't necessarily draw a big number, that they go to an AI announce crew. I
Hmm.
guess I could see that happening, and that kind of stinks for guys that do what I do, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me. I think a lot has stayed the same, but a lot has changed too. As the equipment has changed.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started in broadcasting, I was still typing my scripts on a typewriter. Then we went to computers. Then we everything went digital, and then everything
Hmm.
went high definition. And it seems like it's gradual, but then you look back and it's like, wow, that happened all at once. And 30 years have gone by, and compared to 1991, 2, 3, 4, when I first started in radio, yeah, a lot has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. The technology, like even like you go, me and Lincoln have been in the press box at the X Energy Center, and you see like these holes where they used to have the Ethernet to go on your computer up in the press box, or they have the room still down on ice level where you could go and have a private room where you or a little cubby where you could type out your story with the Ethernet connections and stuff like that, or make phone calls or upload stuff. Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot, especially with technology, like you said, as we move into just the future. Um, Taking a look back into kind of your career in college hockey broadcasting, and this has happened with a couple guys that I've noticed anyway, uh, including you, and I'd say another one that I would say is really notable is Dave Starman. You guys don't do a lot of NCAA regionals anymore. Is there any reason for that?
Well,
Or you
Dave is
specifically?
Dave is now doing the radio for the New York Rangers, so he's kind of preoccupied.
Hmm.
I am not a part of the college hockey package anymore. I did it for 20 years, and that's a pretty good run. And you know, producers change and tastes change. The people
Yeah.
who hired me aren't still at the company, and we have a lot of good announcers at ESPN.
Hmm.
And I still in recent years have done quite a bit of hockey. I haven't done the college hockey package now for about 3-4 years. And I miss it a little bit. But it's just the way it is. ESPN keeps me busy with other stuff. Um, you know, I, I filled in this past fall doing some UND hockey, and I did the PWHL the first 2 years here in Minnesota. Stepped
Hmm.
away from that. That was my decision. I, you know, I, I'm busy enough. Got to
Right.
be honest with you. I'm busy enough and really happy with my life and where I'm at in my career. And, I'll probably end up doing some more hockey in the future. I just don't know when or where. And
Hmm.
I look forward to that opportunity again.
Yeah, for sure. And it was really cool having you up in Grand Forks, having you call it. I was really excited for that. Like, oh, I can't wait to get an old school feel on the new school. Everything that's changed, having your voice on our game. And that's obviously where I got to meet you, when you were up here for the Arizona
Uh,
State series. Um, Taking a look back at, well, before we move into this next question, what was the last NCAA hockey game that you did announce, like for a tournament game?
uh 2-3 years ago, trying to Allentown.
Okay.
Um,
Trying to think who was playing in
when
that.
Michigan, I think Michigan
They playing Quinnipiac
was
and then
yes, yeah, and that was a pretty good
they almost came
series,
back, I think.
a pretty good regional, I should say, and yeah, Michigan won it. I'm
Yeah.
almost positive. So that would have been in 2023,
Okay.
24 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple years, 3 years. Um, but we have the NHL back.
Yeah.
We still have college hockey. We don't have a ton of inventory in
Right.
college hockey, unfortunately. So I wasn't getting a lot of it anyway. But I
Hmm.
had done the regionals for 20 years. So um,
Yeah, that was awesome.
again, well, I did the women's Frozen Four for 3 years, and
Very
that was
cool.
cool. So was able to call some national championships. No, I'm proud of what I've done at ESPN, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
and they're keeping me around. They haven't cut me loose, so that's good. Still have a job.
Well, yeah, you do great work. I can't imagine why they would. Have This is a question, and I don't know, you kind of went into it a little bit, uh but when I look at that '06 regional, and obviously that's a very special one where it's in Grand Forks and it's just going to sell out because it's Grand Forks and UND is playing. But like the one that confuses me is in Denver. Like that one seemed really full. Obviously, that had UND in Minnesota. I believe it had Michigan, and I want to say Air Force in that one as well. But as we get into the nowadays, a lot of the regionals are just dead. And is there any reason that you
Yeah.
have noticed that could be a reason why it's changed? Like maybe back in the day, the regionals were more full, like in the 2000s, and then they kind of started dying out. Because you notice that they stopped going to NHL buildings like they used to. I think the last time they had one in an NHL building was when you called it in 2016 in St. Paul. So, is there any reason that you can maybe pinpoint or anything you've noticed that could contribute to why it just is a big decline since the 2000s?
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna give you the answer that you're looking for. That's the most educated on this because I just don't know. I
Sure.
think some of it has to do. I think some of it has to do with regionals that are on campus. Well, they're not on campus, but are close to a
Hmm.
team that's actually in it. And some of these regionals are just geographically not a good fit that particular year. Where the schools are traveling in and their
Hmm.
fan bases have to come a long way for them. I think that's part
Right.
of it.
Gotta be. Yeah.
I kind of wish they were all on campus, but they're
Yeah.
not. I wish they would go away from the neutral site, at least for the regionals.
Hmm.
The Frozen Four needs to be on a neutral site. I get that, but I
Hmm.
wish the regionals were, on campus.
Yeah, and
but
there's a lot of people
they
advocating for that.
they want to sell a lot of tickets, and some of these arenas don't, have big seating capacities.
Right.
For instance, if Quinnipiac hosts or is the number one seed in a regional, I don't know what their building holds, but
6,000,
it's
I want to
probably
say,
not.
something like that.
Yeah, it's probably not as big as,
Less than that.
Mariucci. Yeah.
Oh, no
So
chance.
we'll see. I hope that they can figure that out.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I probably home, I assume. I only got two more questions for you. Um, unless Lincoln's adding one here, if it's going to be quick. But one of them is also really quick. But you've done the Little League World Series for a while, and I had someone had a good question. What are some of the cool things that you've noticed that they do at the Little League World Series for the kids? Like, it's a big special event, and it's one of the only events I feel like in the world where all these kids are playing and people are watching. What are some cool things that they do there that you've noticed?
Um, they're very good with getting these kids to get to know each other. Not just the amongst themselves, because these kids kind of come together on an all-star team really for a few weeks is what it is, but the other teams, they exchange pins, they do events together, they go visit hospitals and things when they're in these communities for the regionals and when they go to Williamsport, and that's really good. I mean, that's setting a good example,
Hmm.
and it's the purest thing we cover. I mean, it's sports at its purest form. These are kids and they're learning the game, and obviously they make mistakes, but then obviously they're really good too because they're advanced for their age. And you end up seeing kids that go on to play in the major leagues that we've covered at the little league level, and there have been some great stories over the years. So it's every year I do a baseball regional. It seems like I'm I'm recognizing a name that I covered 5 or 6 years earlier in a little league regional. So it's kind of cool to see those kids advance.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And then the last one here. What are some words of wisdom to those who are thinking about going into broadcasting or just taking up a career in sports? Any tips, anything any advice you give to them?
Well, there's no golden key. I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, how do I get to ESPN?" I said, "Well, okay, first you got to go to Princeton, then you got to go to St. Cloud, then you got to Sioux Falls, then you got to go to Omaha.
Great.
You're just not going to get to ESPN in 5 minutes. Got to put the work in. You start early. I started when I was 16, professionally anyway, but for a year or so before that, I had a little tape recorder, and I'd take it up into the gymnasium in Princeton and call JV basketball games, just into a little tape recorder, just for me to get better at learning how to call, get used to how my voice sounded,
Hmm.
critique myself. And then, just look for work anywhere you can find it. Local newspaper, uh, you know, go work for the local radio station, work for the college newspaper, work for the college TV station. Uh, you know, you got to work at it.
Hmm.
Blood, sweat, and tears, and it's going to take time. The thing, I will say is it's nights and weekends. I've worked a lot of nights and
Hmm.
weekends over the last 35, 40 years, and if you're not into that, this isn't for you. You can love sports all you want, but if you're not willing to work nights and weekends, you might want to find another career. But
Right.
if you work hard and if you have some ability and you develop that talent, you can make a living in this.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Awesome.
I'm proof of that. I just kind of worked at it. There are a lot of people that are better than me, but I've made a living out of this, so I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, you've had a terrific career. And it's funny you say the mic thing because I'm pretty sure Doc Emmerich did the same thing. You go, I think he's from like Maine or something. He'd go in the stands and just call the game on a tape recorder too to practice when he was young. So that's cool. But
Yep.
yeah, Clay, I think that's all we got for you. If there's anything small, anyone's got to ask anything. All right, cool. Thanks, Clay. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys, for having
Thanks for
me.
hopping on the
Appreciate it. Good
call.
luck. You
Thank you
bet.
so
You
much.
guys take care. Yep,
Thank
we'll
you,
You
see you.
buddy.
too.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Fellas,
Nail gun.
yeah, what an hour there.
Clay, wait, you want to see this guy's shit draft prediction?
we're still recording, so this is
Yeah.
going in the pod. I gotta. That was really funny. I was breaking up because of that. For those of you who don't know, we've been trolling Lincoln lately about he made a mock draft in our chat. We've just been trolling him about it, uh, giving him a hard time. And Ian made a joke in our group chat while we were getting Clay back on the pod. It was, Clay, what do you think about, what did you say? Clay, what do you think about this
Dog
shit
crap.
mock draft? Yeah, what do you think? I started losing it.
Clay, take a
Um,
look at this. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what.
Clay, take a look at this dog shit. It's so funny. Anyway, yeah, what did you guys think of that? I mean, Clay's a guy that I've looked up to since I was a kid, being from the same area as him and my family loving listening to him, his iconic moments. So that was a really cool experience for me. What did you guys think?
I mean, the guy's pretty awesome. It's
Great storyteller.
it is hard. It's always hard to conceive people in positions like that as just normal everyday people,
Hmm.
like celebrities, yada yada. Yeah, it's just neat to hear his story. I mean, that guy from St. Cloud, Minnesota, and he's been at ESPN for 20 years and some huge moments. So it's just kind of again, if you put your mind to it, you can kind of do anything.
St.
So it's
Cloud's
neat.
got some good alums, dude. I didn't know. I don't know if it's just because broadcasters don't make a crap load of money. You'd think that with some of those notable names out there that they'd be donating more to the school or something. Not that I expect for them to donate, but like you look at it, you just try to pinpoint a problem. I don't know if they're getting a lot of donations or not, but because I think they have a decent business program there too. But anyway, I'm not no one to critique. But Lincoln, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I thought the part about his first ESPN gig being the Holy Cross game just makes
Yeah.
that iconic. And then the fact that he just ends up in a suite with former US presidents pretty insane too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
how
wild.
walking in. I wonder if he, what the security was like, if he knew going in, or if he just like pulled up and then the president's there. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, he's legit. He's the real deal, and you can tell he is really passionate and good at his job. Anyone
Hmm.
who knows that. So
Yeah, I didn't ask him, but I'm pretty sure he told me at one point that hockey's not really his favorite sport to cover. So that's another reason why he doesn't do it a whole lot anymore. And he's just great at it. I mean, he's an absolute nail gun up there for me for sure. Top broadcasters in hockey all the time with Gary Thorne. I wish I would have asked him something about Gary Thorne, but I couldn't think of a way to meander that in there. But anyone got anything else to share before you wrap this show up?
Well, the draft is what, next week,
No, it's not for
right?
another 2 weeks, I think.
Oh,
It's not till July, I think. Early July.
no, it's in June.
Like very, very late June though, right?
I'm pretty sure it's like next week.
I just not sure about that right now. Someone call Toronto on that. Let's see. Let's get the booth checking.
NHL
The
draft
26th.
26th. So 10 days, a week and a half.
All right. Well, when you're right, you're right.
Lincoln, go ahead and share, buddy.
We're not I'm not gonna make him do that right now if he doesn't want to, but we
My
can do that.
draft.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It really depends on what San Jose does like
San
David
Jose,
was
yeah.
kind of talking about earlier before the podcast.
I think they
But,
trade
I really
down.
could go any number of ways. People could see, and I actually don't discredit Lincoln for this prediction, but somebody like Veerhoff could fall to a position like eight, just strictly,
I really
looking at
yeah.
stats and point production, yada yada. Which, do I think that's realistic?
If he
Not
goes
really.
down to eight, I think it's a steal. I mean, I think he
Yeah.
deserves to be higher,
I think it's a
but
possibility,
could
but I do
happen.
not think it's something that's going to happen.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just tough.
the
Sorry. Go
best the
ahead.
best player in this draft class, they could come out of this draft class, might not even go in the top five. It's just so
It's
all
a
over.
yeah, it's a whirlwind. There's no one A plus player. It's a bunch of A minus B plus players, you know.
Yeah, and
What's the right for your organization too? It's really organizational. Like Toronto could go with McKenna, who's obviously the higher ceiling guy. He'll probably will go there, and I'm pretty sure like Lincoln, I think you told me that they said that they were gonna pick him there at the combine.
Yeah.
And Stenberg, I think is a more ready player that I think Chicago could use. That's why I think maybe San Jose trades down to Chicago's spot, maybe gets a second round pick for that. And then Chicago takes Stenberg at 2. And then I think Malhotra goes, his dad just got promoted to GM of Vancouver. He'll go at 3. He's already projected to go at 3. And I think that's where Verhoff or Carl starts to go at 4. So it could go a lot of different ways. I just really want him to go as high as possible. Obviously, anyone who's a UND fan probably wants that to happen. But the further Carl's goes from the top, the more likely he is to stay in to UND. I don't think there's a very high chance that he doesn't come, but if he were to go for some reason at 2 overall, there's a bigger chance that he doesn't come. I
Yeah, this
really
is
hope it doesn't
something
happen.
I don't think we
And that
talked
was
about.
what Lincoln had on his mock draft, just so everyone knows. He had him going number 2, so I just don't think that that's happening. Sorry, Lincoln.
Yeah, I don't think that's something we talked about last time. And I'm not you're not the only person to bring this up. Um, I've actually heard a lot of noise that Carson will actually go straight to the NHL depending on if the team wants him this year. And it sounds like most of the teams don't want him until the end of the season, which is good for us, but there is actually a small possibility that say San Jose takes him at 2 and they really want him to start in the fall. There's a large chance that he actually ends up going.
I think San Jose would be kind of stupid to do that. I think there's just no reason to really rush a guy like that a year in.
They
I
would
mean,
be
he's just gonna go and play in the AHL anyway for most of the year anyway. I don't get
they would be
You put a lot
stupid.
of pressure on those guys who are young.
They all sent to college, so or went to college. I know Celebrini a little bit of a different case because he was 17, but Will Smith, like, dude, all their guys, their young core, all played in college hockey, and it worked out for them. So
Hmm.
if he does go to and he doesn't go to the NCAA, especially UND, who's got a really good track record of at least the last few
Defenseman,
years pumping up defensemen, and we just have Jackson Blake, a relatively young guy, win a
fourth
Stanley.
round steal.
So it's like I don't know. This is going to be a problem, I think, with a lot of NHL players. I think we're going to see that are guys get drafted and they think they're Macklin Celebrini or Matthew Schaefer and they can just step in,
Yeah.
and that's just not going to happen. And it kind of pisses me off because I don't know. But that's the other thing about Carl's. I don't know if he has that mindset because it seems like he's farm kid from Canada. I think he's just going to do hopefully what he thinks is best for him. But some of these agents, I don't know who represents them, but
Get in their ear, yeah.
it is team to team basis. But it's like,
It's also hard to turn down that, $1 million sign-on bonus or whatever he'd get if he went that high.
right. But he's still so
I'll
young.
give him that if he comes here.
He's one of the youngest players in the draft. So it's
I'll
like
sign I'll sign the title for my first house to his name if he comes in next year.
I'm sure he got a chunk that definitely wasn't that much, but I'm sure he got a chunk that's on par with some of the other high-end guys that are coming to college this year.
The bare minimum, he'll have what he needs
Yeah.
for how young he is. He'll have plenty enough to live a year here and have a good time and have a good
Apartment.
season
he plays.
and
He
go
plays
and play in the NHL in a year.
Yeah, if he plays 1 year, he'll be in the NHL by age 18. Still,
Yes. And he'll play at least probably 4 or 5 games at the end of the year after this year, depending on how far UND makes it. He could play more than that if UND doesn't make the Frozen Four. But if UND does make the Frozen Four, he probably won't play any games unless they make the playoffs. But anyway, I mean, yeah, interesting takes. I mean, I doubt we'll have another pod before the draft. Next one will probably be after the draft, but just because I don't want to come on here and just do our draft predictions in one 20-minute podcast. But we got the basis out of the way anyway. So, anyone got anything else to add before, we about the draft or anything? Players, McKenzie going, Carl's, Verhoff. I don't I don't get why everyone is so low on Verhoff now, dude. I don't think you
fair
don't just
hot.
have a guy go possibly number 1, and I'm not even going to acknowledge you, Lincoln, that I just did now, but um, where he could potentially be number 1 in like December. He was still talked about in December about that, especially with how Gavin McKenna was playing, and now he's just 8.
Yeah,
He
it
didn't
is
play bad
weird.
enough to go and just drop him down to 8. And I don't think people watch. The people who are ranking him at 8 don't watch him
Yeah.
play.
It is weird that McKenna gets the optimistic side of the ceiling floor argument, but Veerhov's actually getting the opposite. He's getting the floor side of the ceiling floor argument. So I don't know what's really going on with the double standard there. And again, I think it's just stat watching. And you see a guy like McKenna, and you're like, oh, he had 8 points in one
Hmm.
night against Ohio State, and he tore it up, in the second half of the year points wise.
And it
Let's look at his ceiling, and then you see a guy like Veerhoff who kind of intentionally switched his game plan throughout the second half of the year, whether intentional or not. And he developed, and all of a sudden everybody's thinking this guy's going to be a bust. And to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, Keaton's going to have this season, he's going to have all the draft noise off his shoulders, which is a
hmm
lot to handle as a 17-year-old. You're doing interviews all the time. People are constantly judging you. And then he kind of got the Gavin McKenna treatment at the end of the year. People started just picking his game apart. Probably a little bit of
exactly.
stuff there, which goes with being a 17-year-old on a at a college like UND with everyone breathing down your nose. So I think next year, if he does say drop past, I don't know, 5, which could possibly happen, and he's just comes back, plays his game, I think a lot of people are gonna, and he's gonna have a good season because he's not gonna have to be dealing with all the press anymore. He can just go do his thing.
hmm
People are gonna be like, ooh, maybe we should have drafted him higher because yeah, because I don't know.
Someone's going to be kicking their tail if they don't
I
draft
just think
him.
I just don't think anyone, because you're not drafting him for who he is now. He's a guy who you're waiting. Like you said, he's still 17.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the guy he's going to be in by age 22, 23, which is
Yeah.
what, five
Stud.
5 years from
Four
now.
years from
Hey,
now.
yeah, it's so I don't know. People don't know what they're talking about.
And it doesn't help that you're seeing all these mock drafts done, posted again and again, that are literally just some other person's mock draft that they just are rebranding and putting it as their own.
Yeah, like there's
It
been
doesn't
some
help
where
with
he
the
falls down to
noise.
like 13. That's
That's
insane.
ridiculous.
In no universe will
Those people don't know
Veerhoff fall
ball.
out of the top 10, and it's very unlikely that he even falls out of the top 7.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if
it's
he
I
goes
would.
that steal,
Hmm,
that'd be a steal. Whoever gets him, and I bet
yeah.
whoever
yeah,
he falls pat to 7 or to 8, whoever gets him will be very happy.
yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be a stud. And I don't know. Lincoln, you asked before if Carl's will go before Verhoff, and I I think Carl's will probably go before Verhoff now, but I don't know if he should, based on what I've seen. I haven't seen Carl's play live before.
Carson,
Uh,
sorry if you're listening to this. We're not trying to
yeah, that might
get on you.
change if I when I see him in person. If I see him in person, hopefully he does come here. Um, but yeah, I mean it's interesting. It could go a lot of different ways
It
for
just
sure.
it just comes down to the team because there are definitely teams that have a guy like
I don't
Chase.
get Chase Reed. I don't get why
There's guys who have
he doesn't
Chase
play
Reed
defense
above
at all.
Carls, and then there's teams that definitely have Carls above Chase Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
That's
get it.
it. It
Well,
literally. I know it sounds like obvious that it's like, oh, every team has their own board, but no, like every team legitimately has. There's
They're on
teams that are
board.
picking in whatever, probably the top 5 that don't even have Chase Reed on their
Hmm.
as their pick, even, no matter where they're sitting, they wouldn't pick them.
Yeah.
Like that's just
Hmm.
how it goes. And like
yeah.
you were saying, Dave, if a trade happens here, then the whole thing then any mock draft gets blown up. I think
Yeah.
the way you could approach it too. So I don't know.
Well, and again,
It
it's
just
like
it just makes
the
sense for San Jose and Chicago, to be honest. Chicago needs a Stenberg and San Jose needs a defenseman and they can get one lower than second
yeah,
overall. So
yeah. It's just it is again. It's like the McKenna Stenberg thing. It's like yeah, Stenberg looks more pro ready, and I think Carson probably right now looks a little more pro ready. But you got to think, he's coming from a league where he's playing against guys his age, and he's going to be a stud around guys his age. But we saw with Veerhoff and a lot of people from the CHL this season that like there is a lot more testing to be done in the NCAA's. I think you're going to see that in the next 3 years. Like all these studs, they're kind of going to have to go to the NCAA to really prove their worth to some of these, scouts and teams because, we've seen guys that just light it up, in the W or the O, and then
Hmm.
come to the NCAA, like, Caden Lindstrom, he was invisible this year.
Yeah,
He get
he,
less than 10 points. And
let's
this
look
was a guy
at
who was,
that.
touted as a first rounder. And all of a sudden, he's like one of the lowest producers on that team. And McKenna was the same way
Forgot
the
about
first half
him.
of the year. So it's like it is hard to gauge how pro ready some of these guys are in the CHL when they come to an older, grittier, setting and league like the NCAA's. But all around, I think it's going to help, and you're going to see talent in college continue to explode. So I mean, especially the next couple of years to come, it's going to be really good for college hockey.
Dude, I forgot about Cade Lindstrom, bro. He's a nobody, basically.
He's on a good team too, which is even crazier. I wish these
Yeah.
I wish these European dudes like Stenberg or like a Vigo Bjork, I wish they'd come play college hockey for a year because like then you'd really be able. I just wish all of them came and played a year because then I don't know. And then
Really?
there's another kid he'll probably go I don't know anywhere from probably 10 to 25. I think it's Alexander Command or whatever. I know UND was like I think that Alexander's his first name, but anyways, last name's Command. He's a pretty good player, and I know UND was recruiting him pretty hard. And then he ended up signing with another pro team in Europe, I want to say,
Sweden,
Mm.
out in Sweden. He's really good. So
yeah, he's
He
nasty.
just skipped college and NHL. He went and played Europe. Or he's playing in Europe before he gets drafted.
he hasn't been drafted yet. He'll get drafted this year.
Okay. That makes
They
sense then.
playing. I think he played in the Swedish Pro League, I believe. But UND was after him. Um,
Yeah, I think with the goalies that are coming over, you're going to start to see that more and more because there's like all the nasty goalies this season were all basically guys that came over from Europe to either play in the U show or play wherever.
There's a lot of Czech and
So
Slovak goalies out there now, dude, playing
yeah,
college hockey, and they're
and they're
all
all
good.
monsters. I mean,
They're
like
all
every
good.
top goalie this year was most likely born, in Czechia or Slovakia or Sweden or wherever they're from.
mhm.
Alexander Command, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah,
We apparently we were really I think we were really close to getting him. Like I think
when? When was this?
I
This
think
year? Huh?
I believe he was either going into this year. It might have been no, it might have been going supposed to be going into next year, but we were close to getting him.
I'd never heard of that.
Really?
Nope. Did not hear about that at all. He's supposed
Oh,
to go in the first round this year.
it's
So like
Chiz,
mid
baby.
first round, late first round. But yeah, I mean, the draft could go a lot of different ways. It'll be interesting to see where that guy goes. It'll be interesting to see where McKenzie goes. I mean, we got a lot of guys in this draft. Gonna
Wyatt
be what's that?
Wyatt Cullen, Tynan Lawrence.
Mm,
You guys think Wyatt Cullen is underrated, overrated, or perfectly rated?
I don't know. He's the best one of the bunch, right? Have him and his cousins and his brothers. Which one's the one? The Joey? Is that who it is? There's so many. I can't even keep track. Huh?
Joey's the youngest.
Which one's the best one?
Joey.
Okay, I don't know. Well, I don't know why I don't know. I don't hear a lot of I don't hear a lot about him. I don't go on the same Twitter stuff as you do though. So you might be seeing different. What do you think, Lincoln?
I don't know. I think he'll go anywhere between 15 and 8.
Oh, you mean in mock drafts? Okay, I haven't seen.
Also, like how you think he'll be at Minnesota too, because I think that plays in. Like if Wyatt Cullen, if he doesn't hit his growth spurt, and if he doesn't have the last name if doesn't have the last name Cullen, like I don't know if he's going as like because he's a really good player. But I think he's kind of raw. Like offensively, he's insane. But I think there's also times where he's like a classic good WHL player, really good, but sometimes the effort isn't there back on D, and then he'll like he's a guy who's gonna be really good in college hockey, but it's gonna be an adjustment period. And I've seen way too many Gopher fans. I saw this on X. some Gopher fan goes, the Colin, Zemer, and Mooney line is going to be better than um, Shagabe plant or plant.
No,
And I'm like, dude, what?
no.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Zam had 50. Shogway had more points than Zemer and Mooney. Colin's never played a game in college hockey, and oh yeah, Max Plant won the Hobie Baker Award. So I don't know what these Gopher fans are going on about on Twitter right
To
now.
be
It's
Yeah.
fair, not to,
And
we
like
sound like hypocrites for that because we were kind of the same way with Dane Jackson and, the Gophers, they go from why the hell do we hire this guy to, we're going to be a top five team this year.
the
So,
Gophers
it's just
are good. The Gophers are going to be good. I think they'll make the tournament. But to say that that line's going to be a
yeah,
better
that's
yeah,
established college hockey line,
crazy.
no.
that is
Like
crazy.
it's just delusional. But it's funny, and Gopher fans are fun to watch what they say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't really beat 20 years of natural chemistry that they've developed. I mean, they're brothers. I mean, they've been playing together for 18 to 20 years on the same ice together. I mean, you can't beat that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that happens. And then the Ruck brothers coming to college hockey maybe next year. Or not this coming season, but the year after. You know, two brothers that have said that they want to stick together. You know, they'll probably commit the same place, but what happens at the draft this year? Do they go to the same team? Do they not? And then how does it affect their game when they're not playing on the same team together and probably on the same line? I assume they're on the same line together. How
Yeah.
does that affect their game when they're not playing together? You know, you look at a team players like Henrik and Daniel Sedin who played together. I assume their whole careers pretty much and had really good careers.
Yeah,
That it's hard to
they're
replicate that.
I forget which one is the better one of the two. I one of them might go in the first round, or
It's
yeah,
Marcus.
yeah, one of them might. They're both really good. The way I don't know, maybe I was just reading into it too much, but I think Schloss was tweeting about him quite a bit, which kind of I don't know. I think UND is really in the door for him. And that's
They
not.
are.
I don't have any prior information on that. I don't know. I'm just. I
I know they
just
toured, and I know the word got around about them because Ian knew about it.
they've toured
I
every.
was getting I was getting
Yeah,
told about it at work from people I would not be expecting to hear about it from. So
they've toured a few different places. What I heard, and this could be completely fabricated, but Carson was there that Friday, and the Ruck brothers were there that Sunday. So it was kind of it was a pretty big weekend from what I heard at least, and that could be
yeah.
totally fake. But from also what I heard, it sounds like they're just kind of shopping around and looking at their options. But to say that we're not, I mean, whenever somebody comes to the Ralph to tour, we are in the door in a sense.
They
Hmm.
they know what they're getting from UND, and UND gave them the pitch probably they. So I would UND will be in the run, and I don't know if they're. I would assume I can't. I guess I'm not them. I don't know if they're going for the money because if they really were, I bet they because there were teams that were trying to get them to come to college this year, and I think a few of them were throwing bags at them. I can't
They're
confirm,
probably not interested in the money.
but that's what I'd have to say. Like these guys really seem to care about their development, and whichever team they go to, those guys are going to step right into college hockey, and they're going to be good. Like you might only get them for 1 year. You probably will only get them for 1 year.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But those are guys who are going to come in and be 30 to 40 point scorers in their freshman season, like each. Uh,
You hope so anyway, yeah. If he
yeah.
comes here, especially
Well,
if
they're
they
already
come here.
WHL as is, and the fact that they go back for another year. I mean, you just look at like a guy like Jackson Blake. Like he gets drafted, goes to the USHL, has a crazy year, and then comes into college. Yeah, his game isn't all great right away. I shouldn't say great. He puts up 40 points, but yeah, there's little problems around the little rough around the edges. But he just comes in. And he's just a gamer. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, could go a lot of ways. There'll be a lot of names. This is one of the most anticipated NHL drafts that I'm going to have watched in my lifetime for sure. Just the guys that we're going to be having going early. Usually you're waiting until the mid first round to hear one of our guys' names. So it'll be pretty cool to watch that unfold. And we'll be putting some content out for it. very soon. Anyone else got anything to add before we wrap her up here? A little bit of a long pod today,
A little
but
bit.
nonetheless, good stuff, guys. So I think that's all we got for you guys. Thanks again, always for listening. If you're a returner, appreciate your support every pod. Um, and we'll continue to you keep watching. We'll continue to pump out this content for you. And if you're new, we hope that you enjoyed this podcast and you want to come back another time. Lincoln, stop doing that with your camera. Thank you. Yeah, but anyway, that's all we got for you guys. Enjoy your week, enjoy your time, and enjoy the NHL draft. We'll see you guys very soon.